Well, hello. Thank you for joining me. I'm Willie here on April the 10th on Lake Springfield on the James River, and lesson 100 in A Course in Miracles workbook for students. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Just as God's Son completes His Father, so your part in it completes your Father's plan. Let's read that again. Make sure you got that. Just as God's Son completes His Father, just as you complete your Creator, so your part in it completes your Father's plan. Salvation must reverse the mad belief in separate thoughts and separate bodies, which lead separate lives and go their separate ways. There's a lot of separation in that sentence. Let's read it again. Salvation must reverse the mad belief in separate thoughts and separate bodies, which lead separate lives and go their separate ways. One function shared by separate minds unite them in one purpose, for each one is equally essential to them all. God's will for you is perfect happiness. Okay, keep that in mind. God's will for you is perfect happiness. Why should you choose to go against His will? Why would you choose not to be happy? The part that He has saved for you to take in working out His plan is given you that you might be restored to what He wills, your happiness. This part is as essential to His plan as to your happiness. That your happiness is essential. This part is as essential to God's plan as to your happiness. Your joy must be complete to let His plan be understood by those to whom He sends you. Your joy must be complete to let His plan be understood by those to whom He sends you. They will see their function in your shining face and hear God calling to them in your happy laugh. You are indeed essential to God's plan. Without your joy, His joy is incomplete. Imagine that, God's joy not complete unless you're fulfilled with your joy. You are indeed essential to God's plan. Without your joy, God's joy is incomplete. Without your smile, the world cannot be saved. While you are sad, the light which God Himself appointed as the means to save the world is dim and lusterless, and no one laughs, because all laughter can but echo yours. No one laughs, because all laughter can but echo yours. You are indeed essential to God's plan. Just as your light increases every light that shines in heaven, so your joy on earth calls to all minds to let their sorrows go and take their place beside you in God's plan. God's messengers are joyous, and their joy heals sorrow and despair. God's messengers are joyous, and their joy heals sorrow and despair. They are the proof that God wills perfect happiness for all who will accept their Father's gifts as theirs. Wow, isn't that beautiful? They are proof. God's messengers are joyous, and their joy heals all sorrow and despair. They are the proof that God wills perfect happiness for all who will accept their Father's gifts as theirs. We will not let ourselves be sad today. We will not let ourselves be sad today. For if we do, we fail to take the part that is essential to God's plan, as well as to our vision. Sadness is the sign that you would play another part instead of what has been assigned to you by God. Thus do you fail to show the world how great the happiness He wills for you, and so you do not recognize that it is yours. Today we will attempt to understand joy is our function. Today we will attempt to understand that joy is our function. Wow, what a function. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation, and your part is joy. Today we will attempt to understand joy as our function here. If we are sad, your part is unfulfilled, and all the world is thus deprived of joy along with you. God asks that you be happy so the world can see how much He loves His Son, and wills no sorrow rises to abate His joy. No fear besets Him to disturb His peace. That sentence again. God asks that you be happy so the world can see how much He loves His Son, and wills no sorrow rises to abate His joy. No fear besets Him to disturb His peace. You are God's messenger today. You bring His happiness to all you look upon, His peace to everyone who looks on you and sees His message in your happy face. We will prepare ourselves for this today in our 5-minute practice periods by feeling happiness arise in us according to our Father's will and ours. Our Father's will and our will is to be happy. You are God's messenger today. You bring His happiness to all you look upon, His peace to everyone who looks on you and sees His message in your happy face. We will prepare ourselves for this today in our 5-minute practice periods by feeling happiness arise in us according to our Father's will and ours. So in our 5-minute practice periods to take at the beginning of each hour as best you can today, feel happiness arise in you and take your part in God's plan for salvation, telling yourself, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Begin the exercises with the thought today's idea contains. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Then realize your part is to be happy. Only this is asked of you, only this, to be happy. Only this is asked of you or anyone who wants to take his place among God's messengers. You become a messenger of God, which that's another name for an angel. So you become a messenger of God by being happy. Think what this means. You have indeed been wrong in your belief that sacrifice is asked, that you could sacrifice your own joy in order to follow God. That don't ever have to think that. You but receive according to God's plan and never lose or sacrifice or die. You but receive according to God's plan and never lose or sacrifice or die or even have reason to be unhappy, I might add. Now let us try to find that joy which proves to us and all the world God's will for us. It is your function that you find it here and that you find it now. Here and now. Here and now you need to find happiness. I mean right now, I want you to find happiness. That's what he's saying, here and now. For this you came. That's the reason you came to this planet. Let this one be the day that you succeed. Let this be the day that you succeed and find happiness here and now. Look deep within you, undismayed by all the little thoughts and foolish goals you pass as you ascend to meet the Christ in you. He will be there, and you can reach Him now. What could you rather look upon in place of Him who waits that you may look on Him? What little thought has power to hold you back? What foolish goal can keep you from success when He who calls to you is God Himself? He will be there. You are essential to His plan. You are His messenger today, and you must find what He would have you give. You must find what He would have you give. He wants you to give happiness, so you've got to find it first. Do not forget the idea for today between your longer practice periods. It is yourself who calls to you today. And it is Him you answer every time you tell yourself You are essential to God's plan for the salvation of the world. So we're going to see a whole world that's smiling and happy. And remember, all happiness can but reflect your own. Okay, so many times today, and try to take your 5 minutes every hour, saying to yourself, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Hey, and you know what I'm finding? I'm finding you don't actually have to stop. You can have a meditation, stop for maybe a minute, close your eyes, stay in that meditative posture, and move to your next little thing that you're doing to accomplish all of the things that you're trying to get done for that hour and that day. And just kind of stay in a meditation and close your eyes when you can and open them when you can't. Obviously, if you're walking around, you probably want to have your eyes open. Okay, let's go take a look now in our text. We'll leave my part is essential to God's plan for salvation, and we'll come back to it before we leave together. Let's see, we are ready for paragraph 40, but let's start in paragraph 39 in chapter 16, the forgiveness of illusion. And this is all under section 5, which is illusion and reality of love. So while you're turning there, I'm sitting on the banks of the Lake Springfield, which I think they dammed up the James River to make this little lake. And there's some big white, I think maybe swans or geese or something that were out in the water. You might be able to see them way back there. They're against the cliffs on the other side. But nice place. Let's see. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about lettuces. And this is, I mentioned a little bit about the Butterheads, a more tender lettuce type than crisp head. Butterhead lettuce form a loose head with soft, smooth textured, red-tinged or pale green leaves that become lighter toward the center. Its texture and mild sweet taste makes it perfect for wraps served with light salad dressing, as well as sandwiches and lettuce cups. I like, if you're trying to eat really highly nutrient food, which I'd recommend, and eating less calories, I like taking your lettuce wraps and just putting your food in there, like your beans and rice or some tomatoes, whatever you chopped up, onion, and eat those like a little burrito. Anyway, the one I wanted to tell you about today is the Aunt May's Bibb. Aunt May. It says a Butterhead lettuce bursting with bright green leaves that tolerate both cold and heat. Nice. Tolerates cold and heat. This variety was grown for more than 50 years by Nestor and Amber Keene of Boalsburg, Pennsylvania, after they received seeds from Nestor's Aunt May in 1937. Butterhead is it's a Butterhead lettuce, and it's a 50 to 60 day. So Aunt May's Bibb. Well, thank you for keeping that going for us, Nestor and Amber. And that's nice. You all might be making some heirloom vegetable seeds yourself if you keep the seeds every year and keep planting them. They tend to get acclimated to your particular area more and more, so that the seeds that grow well in, say, right in Springfield will maybe do better than if you grew them down in Fayetteville. So even though it may be Aunt May's Bibb, you grow them for 50 years here in Springfield, and always pick your better plants to save your seed from. And you'll have a variety that's the Aunt Bibb's Springfield or the Aunt Bibb's Fayetteville variety. Might even have a new name for it after several generations. Okay, would you not go through fear to love? This is paragraph 40. Let's back up. Paragraph 39. The bridge that leads to union in yourself must lead to knowledge, for it was built with God beside you and will lead you straight to Him, where your completion rests wholly compatible with His. Every illusion which you accept into your mind by judging it to be attainable removes your own sense of completion and thus denies the wholeness of your Father. Every fantasy be it of love or hate, deprives you of knowledge. Every fantasy, every time you worship an idol, you get lost in your own illusion, and it deprives you of knowledge. Every fantasy, be it of love or hate, deprives you of knowledge, for fantasies are the veil behind which truth is hidden. To lift the veil which seems so dark and heavy, it is only needful to value truth beyond all fantasy, and to be entirely unwilling to settle for illusions in place of truth. Since that's so important to do, let's read it once again. To lift the veil, which seems so dark and heavy, it is only needful to value truth beyond all fantasy, and to be entirely unwilling to settle for illusions in place of truth. Paragraph 40, would you not go through fear to love? For such the journey seems to be, to go through fear into love. Love calls, but hate would have you stay. Hear not the call of hate, and see no fantasies, for your completion lies in truth and nowhere else. See in the call of hate and in every fantasy that rises to delay you, but the call for help, which rises ceaselessly from your Creator, from you and your Creator. Let's read that again. And the unconscious recognition of love that we see in fear. So here he says, see in the call of hate and in every fantasy that rises to delay you, but the call for help, which rises ceaselessly from you to your Creator. You're constantly calling for help in those fears. So let's look at the fear so that we don't have to worship an unconscious idol any longer. Let it go and rise to love. Would He not answer you whose completion is His? He loves you wholly without illusion, as you must love. For love is wholly without illusion, and therefore wholly without fear. For love is wholly without illusion, and therefore wholly without fear. Whom God remembers must be whole, and God has never forgotten what makes Him whole. In your completion lies the memory of His wholeness, and His gratitude to you for His completion. In His link with you lie both His inability to forget and your ability to remember. In Him are joined your willingness to love and all the love of God, who forgot you not. Sometimes you just need to realize that your part is just to be willing to go through fear and to walk in the light of love. And remember, you're going to be met by the strength of God, and you don't have to have it all figured out. He's got it. He's got you covered. Paragraph 41. Your Father can no more forget the truth in you than you can fail to remember it. Your Father can no more forget the truth in you than you can fail to remember it. The Holy Spirit is the bridge to Him, made from your willingness to unite with Him and created by His joy in union with you. The journey that seemed to be endless is almost complete, for what is endless is very near. We're almost to the end. You have almost recognized it. Turn with me firmly away from all illusions now, and let nothing stand in the way of truth. We will take the last foolish journey away from truth together, and then together we go straight to God in joyous answer to His call for His completion. And what's this journey away from truth? It's where you take just a moment to look at what you're afraid of and say, oh, that was the snake I just jumped back away from. Well, now I know what to do, so now I'm going to proceed to love and not be afraid of the snake. All right? Or whatever the thing causing you some fear, you look at it long enough to say, okay, I need some help to reperceive this, get your miracle, and head towards love. The last paragraph we're going to read today, 42. If special relationships of any kind would hinder God's completion, can they have value to you? If special relationships of any kind would hinder God's completion, can they have value to you? What would interfere with God must interfere with you. Only in time does interference in God's completion seem to be possible. The bridge that He would carry you across lifts you from time into eternity. Waken from time and answer fearlessly the call of Him who gave eternity to you in your creation. On this side of the bridge to timelessness, you understand nothing. But as you step lightly across it, upheld by timelessness, you are directed straight to the heart of God. At its center, and only there, you are safe forever, because you are complete forever. There is no veil the love of God in us together cannot lift. There is no veil the love of God in us cannot lift. There is no veil the love of God in us together cannot lift. The way to truth is open. Follow it with me. Jesus saying, the way of truth is open. Look at your fears. Go beyond them. Stay in the joy. Do our lesson for today. Our lesson for today, to find the joy and to stay in it. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. My part is essential to God's plan for salvation. Begin the exercises with the thought today's idea contains. Then realize your part is to be happy. Only this is asked of you or anyone who wants to take his place among God's angels or God's messengers. Think what this means. You have indeed been wrong in your belief that sacrifice of your joy is asked of you. You but receive according to God's plan, and never lose or sacrifice or die or have any reason to be diminished with your inner smile and even outer smile. So you'll find that here and now. That's what you came for, he's saying. So you can say that your part is essential to God's plan for salvation. And happiness, joy, is your part. And happiness is your part. So until tomorrow, my part is essential to God's plan for salvation.